For this episode, I'm going to do the first part of a segment that I'm calling the general case for socialism. This is where I'm basically adding context and perspective to why I am a socialist and how it relates to the state of our planet and collective humanity in this day and age. I want to be clear throughout this podcast that everything I say is only a reflection of my personal beliefs, and I'm always open to changing them based on new information and perspective if it is compelling enough. I do not speak for socialists in general. I only speak for myself, and I do my very best to be intellectually honest and actually understand different ideologies and their respective perspectives in an honest way. So if anyone wants to talk politics or send me sources with opposing opinions or just want to send me a news story that they think I should check out, I am more than open to this. I am very welcome to it, and I hope y'all pull through and email me. My email is simply thepatrioticcommunist@gmail.com, and that's pretty much the same with all of my pages, pretty much. And if you email me, I promise I will reply. The only reason I wouldn't would be because for one reason or another I did not receive it. And in that case, try again, maybe DM my Instagram or something. And if I find an email exchange particularly valuable, I will share it and my thoughts on it right here on my podcast. Anyways, time for part one of the general case for socialism. The first point I feel like I need to make is that when I'm talking about socialism or democratic socialism, I'm not talking about social democracy. Social democracy is an ideology that is about fixing capitalism through the means of regulation and redistribution of wealth. This is a political concept that works alongside capitalism, and it is not fundamentally a different economic system. Socialism requires the overthrow of capitalism, and it is not an ideology that works alongside capitalism. It is an ideology that requires replacing capitalism with a different system of production and distribution. Put in the most simple terms, social democrats want to reform the capitalist system, and socialists want to overthrow it. In the United States, this is a common misconception, especially due to Bernie Sanders calling himself a democratic socialist when in reality his policies reflect those of a social democrat. The reason I am a socialist instead of a social democrat is very simple, and it is because whoever owns the means of production is who has the real power in a society, and in social democracy, you ultimately leave that in the hands of the few. So that's really the root of the reason. And while in socialism, you put it into the hands of the workers. In other words, into the hands of the people. I would also mention that in theory, social democracy is inherently authoritarian, since it focuses on redistribution of wealth through means of force. In a socialist economic system, you redistribute resources and wealth at the source by giving the means of production to the workers and having an economy that is run by worker co-ops at the root, which, in effect, extinguishes private ownership of businesses and makes it so that the decisions in a company are made democratically. This is not an authoritarian idea. This is an inherently democratic idea, actually. But the idea of having a government take away someone's wealth that they own through means of taxation or whatever else and give it to the public through force, that is authoritarian by definition, which I find ironic because I hear people say that Marxism is authoritarian in progressive media while they're advocating for a system with legitimate authoritarian economic tendencies. I'm not saying that it's some incomparable level of authoritarianism or anything, but social democracy, I mean, that's part of the economic system, is you need a government that practices forms of authoritarianism in order for it to work. And in my opinion, that's a limiting factor that's pretty open to human error. When in a socialist system, that's just not the case. Capitalism, is the current dominant economic system of the world, and it is essential to understand what it is in order to understand the necessity for a socialist economic system. In capitalism, money is what runs everything, and the way you make money comes in many different forms, but probably the most common way is through employment. You go to an interview, talk about pay, sign a contract, and they give you a steady income in order for you to pay for your necessities and luxuries, such as shelter, land, food, clothes, and any consumer good you can think of. More often than not, the employer's leverage in this transaction is having more money and owning or working for an owner of a business, which makes the money that you don't have, but you need in order to make a living. The fundamental way that business owners make money in capitalism is by selling goods and services at a cost that is more than what it is actually worth. And this disparity is called a profit. And by paying the least amount of money on any cost in the process, whether this be materials, production, distribution, labor, and anything else, that also results in a higher profit. So they have the incentive of profit more often than not, profit alone. So this is how I would summarize the incentives of the current economic system. Some of the problems that arise out of this incentive structure include the outsourcing of jobs, the destruction of the environment, and the profiting off of endless foreign intervention and warfare, the rise of inequality, the complete corruption of our political institutions, the lack of basic protections and benefits for many workers, and the list goes on. There are many negative psychological aspects to this system as well, and it has proven to not be compatible with human nature at all. It results in power consolidating in unhealthy amounts to the point where mass starvation occurs every day on this planet in the 21st century. Literally thousands of deaths from this mess of a system. Third world countries endlessly exploited because desperate workers are willing to work for less money. The illegal immigrants in this country are endlessly exploited for the same reason, and then they are demonized as if the flaws of this system are to blame on the ones that are most oppressed by it. Yeah, sure, this system pulls some people out of poverty, but only at the expense of forcing others to stay in poverty, and having all the power in society concentrated among the few, while the many are to be grateful and shut up. Now, no doubt, capitalism has its benefits in societies, and it beats the economic systems that came before it. I don't disagree with that. And also, capitalism in general is the only reason that we are in a place in this world where we can actually speak about socialism and communism in a way that's easily comprehensible to happen. It's because of the technology and the infrastructure that capitalism has produced for us. Socialism and communism is only a result of capitalism. It could not exist without it. Capitalism was an extremely important step, but it is outdated, and we need to change it because now it's obscene that we still use it, frankly. Anyways, that ends the first part of my Socialism 101 segment. Let me know what you think. Disagree, have any other thoughts? Email me and all of that. I will continue to do this segment. Thanks for listening, and feel free to send me an email if you have any suggestions or feedback, or if you would just want to talk politics. I am the Patriotic Communist at gmail.com. Also, check me out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. On all these websites, I'm simply the Patriotic Communist. Anyways, stay safe, y'all, and look out for each other. I will see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Patriotic Communist. All of the music you heard in this podcast was produced and performed by me, Max Rice, and if you would like to check it out, just search Max Rice on any streaming platform. That's MAXRICE. Yes, like the food rice. This is Max Rice signing off.